Ilya Sutskever, one of the co-founders of openAI and a leading mind in deep learning and neural networks, just dropped some jaw-dropping insights about the future of AI. The race towards artificial superintelligence, which until recently was just sci-fi, is happening right now. And what Ilya said might actually redefine our assumptions about the scaling laws and the notion that bigger and larger models would eventually get us to AGI. Ilya talks about the current paradigm we're in and why it's coming to an end. He speaks about the death of pre-training, and this is important because AI progress in the past few years has been largely driven by scaling up pre-training of large language models. During pre-training, models are given large datasets to understand language patterns and their underlying principles.
Think about it. What does it mean to predict the next token well enough? In order to understand those statistics, to compress them, you need to understand what is it about the world that creates those statistics.
And this led to the emergence of the scaling laws. Using more data and more compute to train models consistently yielded better performance. It was assumed that scaling LLMs even more would eventually get us to AGI. A couple of weeks ago, some openAI employees leaked insider information to a news outlet called The Information. OpenAI has been finishing up training a new model in their GPT series, and according to The Information, their next-gen model, GPT-5, codenamed Orion, isn't reliably better than its predecessor in handling certain tasks, such as coding. Ilya Sutskever told Reuters that results from scaling up pre-training have plateaued. Ilya said the 2010s were the age of scaling. Now we're back in the age of wonder and discovery once again. Everyone is looking for the next thing. And to be honest, I think the end of the scaling laws would be good for humanity. And you're going to want to hear Mark Andreessen from Andreessen Horowitz talking about this.
But what did you hear in those meetings?
AI is a technology basically that the government is going to completely control. This is not going to be a startup thing. They actually said flat out to us, don't do AI startups. Like don't fund AI startups. It's not something that we're going to allow to happen. They're not going to be allowed to exist. There's no point. They basically said AI is going to be a game of 2 or 3 big companies working closely with the government. And we're going to basically wrap them in a, I'm paraphrasing, but we're going to basically wrap them in a government cocoon. We're going to protect them from competition. We're going to control them, and we're going to dictate what they do. And then I said, I don't understand how you're going to lock this down so much because like the math for, AI is like out there and it's being taught everywhere. And, they literally said, during the Cold War, we classified entire areas of physics and took them out of the research community and like entire branches of physics basically went dark and didn't proceed. And that if we decide we need to, we're going to do the same thing to the math underneath AI.
Wow.
With the end of scaling laws, we'll have more people competing instead of 2 or 3 companies completely monopolizing AI, because training models requires copious amounts of capital and energy. But people leading the big AI labs believe that scaling will continue to get us better results. They don't believe there's any wall or plateau or anything else for that matter. Sam Altman, responding to these rumors, tweeted that there is no wall.
I'm supposed to think there's been a whole bunch of headlines in the past couple of weeks where people have talked actually about maybe that the scaling laws of AI actually are slowing down. And you put out this, I don't know if it was cryptic or it was very direct. You put out a tweet where you wrote, "There is no wall."
I don't see how it could be any less cryptic than that. Like, that was an attempt not to be cryptic at all and say, hey, this is going to keep going. In fact, hopefully this will put it to rest at least for a while. I've always been struck by how much people love to speculate on, is there a wall? Is scaling going to keep going? And like, rather than just like look at the curve of progress and say, maybe I shouldn't bet against an exponential like that.
Another respected person in the AI space, Dario Amodei, who is the CEO of Anthropic, also brushed aside the speculations about slowing progress.
I think from a fundamental perspective, I think it's very unlikely that the scaling laws will just stop.
But one should take comments of CEOs with a pinch of salt, because they have a clear incentive to keep the hype and excitement going. Nevertheless, Ilya seems to be standing by his comments. Speaking at a conference, he re-emphasized his point.
Networks train on huge datasets. But pre-training has been trained on large neural networks. Extraordinarily large neural networks train on huge datasets. But pre-training as we know it will unquestionably end. Pre-training will end. Why will it end? Because while compute is growing through better hardware, better algorithms, and larger clusters, right? All those things keep increasing your compute. All these things keep increasing your compute. The data is not growing because we have but one internet. We have but one internet. You could even go as far as to say that data is the fossil fuel of AI. It was like created somehow, and now we use it, and we've achieved peak data, and there'll be no more. We have to deal with the data that we have. Now, it's still let us go quite far, but there's only one internet.
And he's right, we've basically exhausted almost all trainable data. Some still believe we can find more data. The man behind Google's Gemini models, Logan Kilpatrick, responded to Ilya's comments by tweeting, "Pre-training is only over if you have no imagination." I find this unrealistic. The jump in scale between GPT-3 and GPT-4, for example, required orders of magnitude more data, and achieving such growth again seems implausible. Even if for now we manage to discover marginally better datasets, the current paradigm of scaling pre-training will eventually hit its limits. We might still see incremental progress, but not improvements on an exponential scale. To continue advancing, we will need to explore alternative methods, beyond simply scaling data and compute, and Ilya gives 3 possible solutions.
So here I'll take a bit of liberty to speculate about what comes next. Actually, I don't need to speculate because many people are speculating too, and I'll mention their speculations. You may have heard the phrase agents. It's common, and I'm sure that eventually something will happen, but people feel like something agents is the future. More concretely, but also a little bit vaguely, synthetic data. But what does synthetic data mean? Figuring this out is a big challenge. And I'm sure that different people have all kinds of interesting progress there. And an inference time compute, or maybe what's been most recently, most vividly seen in O1, the O1 model, these are all examples of things, of people trying to figure out what to do after pre-training. And those are all very good things to do.
Going into 2025, agents are going to be big. He says that while current systems are good at generating responses, they aren't truly agentic. This means they lack the ability to independently set goals, reason about their environment, and take meaningful action in the world. Agentic AI will fundamentally change how we interact with technology. Imagine a personal AI assistant that proactively manages your tasks, conducts complex research, or solves real-world problems without constant prompts or supervision. This represents a massive leap in functionality. He also mentions synthetic data as a potential solution to the limitations of real-world data. While synthetic data is promising, he acknowledges that creating high-quality synthetic data is a major challenge. Synthetic data refers to artificially generated datasets that mimic the properties of real-world data. These can be created using simulations, generative models, or algorithms designed to replicate natural phenomena. As we hit the limits of real-world data, synthetic data could provide new training material for AI systems. The last thing Ilya mentioned is the new paradigm of reasoning models, which are essentially scaling up test-time compute, which is a fancy way of saying the AI takes a moment to think before answering. This is the method behind the new O1 model by openAI. But time will tell what the future of AI will look like, and we will be covering every development closely, so stick around.